everybody, welcome to the Remedy. Hi, I'm your host Tony Pantelresco, and you're listening to us live on the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network. We can access the show by typing in www.themicroeffect.com. Then click on the appropriate links, the chat room links. Come on in, make friends, get acquainted, solve some issues, save the planet, brainstorm, cooperate. I'm also published at several different locations throughout the internet, buyebluesky.com, Brian396.com, GetCanada.com, and throughout the internet you'll find me somewhere, someplace, somewhere. I'm also a podcast at Podbean and depends.podbean.com. So feel free to access me in any way, shape, or form to get whatever information you need to help you get through the day. I got a variety of different things I want to talk about today. It's one of those, you get a weekend and you kind of collect a lot of data and have a chance to go through it, and you see a lot of things that are happening. It's like, oh, where do you begin? What do you want to talk about today, and I figured I'd start on the terahertz because everybody is concerned about 5G. I get a lot of emails about 5G, and I try to tell everybody it's not the 5G you got to worry about. It's the terahertz frequencies that are pumping out there. 5G is the acronym that they got you distracted with, but nobody's actually investigating the actual frequency that's coming from that. Terahertz frequencies they range between the microwave and the higher, the lower EMF and the higher microwave ranges, and they have, sorry, not the microwave, the infrared ranges. And so when you're talking infrared and microwave, it will have an effect and impact on both ranges. And when you look at the study on it and you see the amount of damage it causes, the interesting thing about it is it doesn't it doesn't leave a mark. You can be hit with it in what they call a femtosecond. A femtosecond is 1 quadrillionth of a second. It's like hardly any exposure, but the intensity of the frequency is so strong that even at that rate of speed of exposure, it causes a tremendous amount of internal damage on the DNA and the genetic code. And it has a limitation, just like they tell you about 5G has a limitation. It's a straight line, blah, blah, blah. This is basically an assault weapon going to be put on everybody's neighborhood. And this is not going to help in any way, shape, or form your transmissions in regarding your cell phone usage or your computer, your Wi-Fi's, anything that you've got going on right now. This is specifically designed to cause a great deal of damage to your genetic code and your DNA. And when you actually look at this, and you see this actual studies that they did with rats, and they would shave an area of the rat and just hit it with a exposure, and they kept hitting it like in a 30-hour time frame, which I'm not sure what that would transfer to in months, days, or weeks, or hours in regarding to exposure to mankind. When we're dealing with the exposure levels on this stuff, it becomes the cumulative exposure. Now we've got those sun heaters up in space that they tell us there's over 230 of them up there floating around, causing our weather to be modified, causing all kinds of anomalous things to happen, and even to create a illusion of sunshine. The frequencies that come from that are on the terahertz ranges, and you can tell the difference between the sunshine and the heat of the sun on your skin and a terahertz radiation being hit with you on the skin. You literally feel like the inside of the skin is irritated. It feels like it's itchy. It feels like it's just not relaxed at all. It's being agitated. Whereas when you get hit with the sun radiation on the skin is like a smooth blanket that covers the skin. Doesn't cause really any internal irritation. It's just basically what it does. It coats us with a specific spectrum of light that our systems can utilize and use. And I want to get into that a little bit just so that we can understand how this works. and what's going to be required to, again, remove the excess damage that this does on the inside. There's going to be certain supplements you're going to definitely need to be taking at a higher level, like your vitamin A, retinol palmitate, your gelatin, your copper, your manganese, your ascorbic acid. This is just to mitigate the damage and to help repair and restore what you're being exposed to. You may need to create a covering of some kind to shield yourself, or some kind of dispersant that you can wear on yourself, and it's got to be big enough to cover your system, not just a little tiny pendulum or a ring or some kind of magic stone that you're going to have. That's all a lot of horse hockey. You're going to need something adequately big enough and wide enough to cover any of the exposed skin, because you got to remember, the frequency ranges are between microwave and infrared, and the terahertz has the impact of both. Not one or the other, but both. And it has the same damaging effects of both. So you have to recognize that your clothing may not be enough to shield you. You may need to wear shielding garments made out of silver or nickel, or maybe out of copper. You may need to create a grounding strap, a portable grounding strap. You may need to create some means of releasing the flow so that your body doesn't contain it, like a capacitor. You may need to discharge yourself more. You may need to detox yourself more with baths, or with some kind of pulsing array that can help remove the particulates inside the body out. You have to understand, if you take a piece of aluminum foil and put that in a microwave, what happens when you turn the microwave on? You have high levels of sparking, high levels of damage, high levels of issues going on in regarding to the system. So you have to recognize that these nanoparticles inside the bodies can cause an overload of damage when they're being exposed to these levels of frequencies. This is something we have to think in these terms today. When we're looking at health today, it's not just a simple thing of taking a vitamin anymore, taking a herb, or eating the right type of foods, because majority of the time the stuff that we're consuming in any way, shape, or form has been compromised. Organics don't exist. Organics have a high level of smart dust, smart sensors, nano silver, silicon dioxide, silicon nanosilica, being sprayed on these plants, which permeate into the very core of the DNA, and you consume it. Now you have a silicon-like material in the body, which can now act as a an integral means of transferring those frequencies throughout the system. You're now getting high levels of carbon in the system, carbon multi-walled nanoparticles, or single-walled carbon nanotubes. These things are being put into the system as well. And these people that are talking about how they're using carbon C60, there is no place anywhere that you're going to find, other than in their world of unreality, that carbon C60 has any benefit. We did a talk last week about the guy who did a song about NASA. I forget what he was called, but he basically created the whole expose about NASA and how they have been completely, untrue, deceptive, creating a detour in reality, and basically it was done really well. Oh great. Anyway, yeah, I did see that. Somebody sent that to me. I have been in contact with, well, I'm not sure she calls herself Sister Keri Burnor anymore. I think her name, she calls herself something Keri Cassie, or no, Keri Burnor, whatever. Yeah, we talked, and we're pretty well on the same page about the whole nano. She's pretty well up on what's going on. She knows pretty good on what we're dealing with here, and the extent and the intensity of nano poisoning. We have to look at this a little bit more and how it's operating. Someone sent me an article about light and how light could possibly be a means of destroying the nano. Nano feeds on light, sound, all kinds of energy patterns. And as we stated before, Brian 396 and I have stated before that you cannot create a direct assault on any form of nanotechnology, because after the third assault, it will morph, it will change, it will shift, it will become completely different. It won't even resonate at the frequency it initially resonated at. It becomes a completely different animal. So I explained to her that laser can crack carbon nanotubes, can crack it. Doesn't mean it shatters it, it can crack it. Some parts may come undone. But the thing about carbon nanotubes and a lot of nanotechnology, it can have a self-repairing, self-assembling, and self-replicating technology. So even if they do get damaged, they're by design ready to replicate, repair, and continue to follow their paradigm. So you have to turn off the program. And that's what we've tried to show with some of the technologies that we've shared with everybody, that you've got to turn off the program, and then you have to detox the stuff out of the system. That's about the only way that I see it going on at the time. It seems like no matter what I read in regard to nano poisoning, nanobiology, nanobiotech, doesn't matter what you read on it, it all works out the same way. You first have to disengage it from its assembling program. I was reading something on sound, how they're using sonification to create a dispersion of carbon nano in certain technologies today, or in certain manufacturing practices today. But they have to use a form of sonification to create a concentration in their assembly, because it's not a very good water-soluble mixture. It doesn't work well in solvents either. In fats, it barely works, but it has to have the sound in order to create the molecular integration. They're creating a liposome is what they're creating, or hydrogel. So in order for it to be able to embed and to be able to form some kind of substance. And herein lies the problem. When that happens and it causes that kind of concentration and it gets into the body, the body doesn't recognize it. It goes into the cells, goes into the tissues, it goes directly to your genetic code. It embeds itself in the spine, in the brain, and then you have problems. I would probably attest that probably 99% of the health issues that we're suffering from today stem way back from 1960, when they started initiating the nano into the food supply way back then. And the further back you go in researching some of the stuff, the more you begin to realize they already had a lot of this technology even as far as 100 years ago. They started experimenting and initiating a lot of this stuff even way back then. So this is why I say anybody born in the 50s, you have about 55 to 60 years of accumulation in your body. Anybody born after 1986 basically has no food supply safety whatsoever, and has had this in this food supply at that point over 25 years. So it's going to be very difficult for anybody to give you a proper diagnostic in regard to your health. They can tell you you've got a violation going on, or you got yeast infection, autoimmune disorders, digestive disorders, skin disorders, cancers, autoimmune breakdown, respiratory breakdown, skeletal issues, whatever. They can tell you that you got these things, but they can't tell you where you got them from. How did this happen? How did this initiate? What caused this to happen? See, it's a vagary to say that pollution caused the problem. Okay, pollution does cause the problem. But what pollutants are causing the problem? And how are they causing the problem? See, this is something they don't tell you. This is something that's left out of the equation. This is something that, is like, well, you're taking for granted, okay, we got a smokestack out there pumping out whatever. We don't know. Cars are driving, emitting all kinds of emissions. They're also on the nanoscale. Trucks as well. Planes, helicopters, motorcycles. We're exposed to a lot of nanoparticles we're not even consciously aware of. And then when you start going into the food stores and the grocery stores, which are now also spraying nano in the harvesting of the crop, glyphosates in the harvesting of the crop, whether they're irrespective of genetics or non-genetics, or GMO and non-GMO. And this all has an accumulative effect because you don't get rid of these materials until you actually extract them out, till you start detoxifying on a regular basis. When we're looking at the whole paradigm here, frequency activation, nanosaturation, genetic, what do you call that? Taking away your defenses, you know, disarming, genetic disarming, you know, immune suppressing technologies that allow all these things. When you do all these things, it allows all this to come about and take place. You are in the crosshairs here, and there is no exception. Everybody has some form of this. It's just a matter of when you get activated and the level of saturation before it happens. It's going to be inevitable. And the younger you are, the higher the probability that you've already started showing signs. Somebody contacted me a little while ago, and they said they had a child, a baby, not even a year old, was already showing signs of geometrical patterns forming on the stomach. Not even a year old. Okay, so we're talking now basically a hyper shortened lifespan is what we're talking. If the nano is that saturated already in the digestive system and already in the intestinal tract, this is going to further cause major dilemmas and problems for the children in that realm, who are showing those signs. And again, the detoxification is going to be a difficult one to do for a child that's 1 year old, because children need to take in nutrients so that their DNA can grow and their genetic code can, again, mature. So taking things out of a child, you have to make sure if you do any form of light detoxification, you're going to use things like pectin, you're going to use things like maybe charcoal, you're going to maybe use things like mild or diluted forms of EDTA, nothing really harsh. And then you're also going to start looking at putting back into the child the things that may not be there, minerals, bacteria, culture, you know, and so on. This is really an alarming thing, and you're going to see more and more children showing signs. My emails grow daily with people contacting me all over the planet, and now it's telling me that after years and years and years and years of going to medical people, getting all these drugs, medications, vaccines, shots, salves, whatever, creams, lotions that the medical field has given, in general, nothing's working. And so when they start hearing that maybe a frequency could be activating some of this, they see this. When they see that the impact of what's going on in their DNA and nothing is fixing it, they're getting it. They're beginning to see it. They're seeing the patterns. Now they're building their buckets. Now they're building their triangles. Now they're looking for any other information they can get. I don't know if they're going to be robot babies or not, Starfire. I really don't know. I don't know what they're going to be. I mean, I don't even know if they're going to live long enough to be anything other than raw DNA material for artificial intelligence. I really don't know. I mean, this has happened before, I am sure, but I don't know. I haven't found any information yet. Haven't delved that far into it. I've been sort of diverted on so many different levels, and my education is constantly expanding. And I don't know what we're going to produce here. I have no idea. You know, when the children, when the seed and the egg are combining, and the seed is loaded with the nano and whatever nano programming is there, the egg is also loaded with nano and whatever nano programming there is there. It's attaching itself to the uterus or uterine lining, and again, uterus is also loaded with nano. The blood has it in it. The food that the mother's going to eat has it in it. So as the cells split, so does the nano. So I have no idea what we're going to be seeing in the future. How about nursing the baby if mom eats and detoxifies like it? That may help. And again, the mom is going to definitely have to be very careful what she consumes. If she's reckless and starts eating the breads, the pastas, the cereals, the rice, the corn, the soy, starts using omega-3 fats, thinking that the child is going to get the DHA from that perspective, it's just going to keep on transferring over to the child. If moms are going to be breastfeeding, they should be using things like full-fat yogurt, full-fat kefir, full-fat ricotta, full-fat cottage cheese. They might definitely need to be taking more iodine. They definitely need to be taking more copper, more zinc, more manganese, more selenium. They need to sustain the fortification of these minerals into the child so that the child's immune system has a chance of fighting off whatever may assault its DNA. Selenium protects the DNA, so does iodine, so does zinc in small amounts. So if the mom is getting that, that too will transfer over to the child. Any protein that she consumes, she wants to keep it as clean as possible. Things like gelatin, a good clean whey that doesn't have any excipients in it. We found one here in Canada called Lean Fit. It's not sold in the United States. It actually might not be sold anymore in Costco either because I think everybody bought it and they sold out. But anything like that you might want to utilize. Collagen proteins are good as well. Again, they will be cleaner and refined. Eggs, egg-based proteins. Now, always remember, the food supply will have been compromised. So whatever the mom eats, she's going to have to take the same neutralizing components that anybody else would eat so that it can bind with whatever is going inside the digestive system so that it can pass through the mom, so that the child will have minimal transference as much as possible. I would even give the mom colostrum. You know, get some colostrum going into the system. Get some even transfer factors if you can afford it. If you can find a company that is non-MLM. You know, that's the problem with some of these products. They've got good products, but they're a multi-level marketing, and they cause a lot of problems. They're just crappy companies to deal with, and I don't even like them. So again, you know, anything the mom can do to continue sustaining and supporting the digestive system of the child, that's where the DNA is going to be at its weakest. That's where everything in the child's brain or mind develops, is down in the gut. That's where everything is being processed to be converted so that the body can utilize this. So these are things you want the mom to have. You know, butter for sure, ghee for sure, MCT oil, coconut oil. And that's another thing a lot of you have been sending me now, that the media now is saying to you, some doctors have come out saying that coconut oil is poison. So I've been getting emails, Tony, have you read this? And then I tell people all the time, why would you believe these people? You know, back in the 50s, they said the same thing, and then about 1970, 1980, they said, no, the coconut oil is actually good for you, and that we needed to saturate fat and blah, blah, blah. Now it's no longer any good. Again, why would you listen to these people? When you see the cartoon reality that NASA puts out there, the cartoon reality that YouTube propagates with some of these doctors and these doctor gurus who don't know nothing, you know, as far as what really is being healthy, you should be basically turning it off or moving on. By now, after hearing me talk, you should be saying, you know what, this is bunk. You know, you should have done enough investigation on this stuff to be able to see through the fact that this is for the people who are illiterate, stupid, uninformed, uneducated, and refuse to do anything but follow the Walt Disney Channel. If all they're doing is a simple Google research, and this is what turns up at the top of the research page saying, oh, coconut oil is bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And if that's all they're reading, then you know what? That they will be the ones to suffer, because you need to saturate fat for so many different things. And you have to be aware of that. You know, you don't need to be writing me an email saying, oh, did you see this? You know, I usually don't even pay attention to these people. When I hear somebody say stuff that I know is not even true, I don't even bother going to the channel to support them. I don't need to be sensationalized. You know, I don't need to see somebody, you know, handing me a line of bunk and baloney. I get enough of that throughout my day and throughout my life. So I don't need to go add more to it. I don't need that entertainment factor. You know what I mean? And you shouldn't either. It's a waste of time to give this type of commercialism any of your time at all. You know. So basically, you know, in regard to what do you mean? What do you mean by what T, Starfire? What are you referring to? Let me know, unless you're talking to Sheila. Anything that a mom can do to fortify not only her system but the child she's carrying or the child afterwards through breastfeeding, I definitely would encourage. You know, I would probably tell the moms to drink a little either sarsaparilla, olive leaf, or yucca. This has a saponin-like material, so as she consumes this will help wipe her cells clean, and at the same time help with the child as it transfers over into the milk. We're living in another world today. The one we're in is no longer around. We are in a completely different realm. Yeah. That's exactly it, Starfire. One day coffee is good for you. Next day it's bad. I'm going to read something to you too. Let's see where we're at. Okay, after the break, when we get to the break, I'm going to show you guys how they basically bang you around all over the place with nonsense and stupidity. And I'm going to show you how, when you do a proper investigation, you can then discern whether or not, you know, what is being perpetrated has any accuracy. Because when you're looking at, okay, everyone's still talking about eating grains and this macrobiotic crap. Well, the guy that invented the macrobiotic diet died from it. You know, it was his diet, you know. Just like Michael J. Fox, he kept drinking all that Pepsi, and now he's got Parkinson's from all the aspartame and the aluminum that was coming from the can. You know, they don't recognize this. They just think that, oh, they made their money and they're getting their royalty from Pepsi, so they can't really come out and say anything bad about Pepsi, or they're making their royalties or whatever. They can't really say anything bad about other things, and as a result, the lie keeps getting perpetrated. I made my millions, and now the money's flowing in. But like I said, I will get into that because there's a couple things I'm going to give you when we get after the break. During the break, I'll probably put some stuff in the chat room so that you guys can see. Well, I'll put this in there right now. You can see how networked the planet is with this link. This link is going to blow you away. Oh, I hear the music. So come on back. There's one link started, and we'll see you in a bit. Hey, we are back on time, on schedule, on the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network. Yeah, and I'm your host, Tony Pantelrisco, and you're listening to The Remedy. I put a bunch of links in the chat room, so if you're in the chat room, you get the benefit of the links that are going on. You can see how they have networked the planet with these cables. But did you notice in the networking of the cables that Russia doesn't have the network? You notice that? Did you see that? Did you see any kind of connections coming in from Russia from across the Atlantic or Pacific? You know, or from the Arctic rather to the Pacific? No, it was nothing there. China was loaded, all of Asia was loaded, everything else was loaded, but Russia wasn't connected. Find out a lot. Did you see in the terahertz? Okay, that one. When it was transferred over into the PDF, some of it got cut off, so I will talk a little bit about that as well in regarding to you know, the impact of this. It's like I said, it's important you understand it doesn't take much today to create any kind of anomaly and then give it some kind of a disease name that has nothing to do with it, just like the Morgellons was thrown out there as some kind of pathology. And someone sent me a YouTube on this thing too, and I thought, oh, what a load of baloney. You know, there might be some aspect to it, but this is something so much more advanced than that patent. And anyway, when you're looking at some of the things again that we're dealing with today, and what the distractions are going on, when you're looking at the symptomologies that you're all dealing with and you're all facing, and everything that you're handling in regard to the symptoms, you know, and then you read some article that comes along, and then you're trying to, you know, correlate that to what you have. That's where you start making the mistakes. That's where you start having problems. That's when you start believing the nonsense. Okay, carbon nanotube sponges as tunable materials for electromagnetic applications. The microwave conductivity and permittivity of both single-walled and multi-walled carbon nanotube sponges were measured while compressing the samples. Compression leads to a huge variation of absorptance, reflectance, and transmittance of the samples. So again, because we're so loaded with these carbon nanotubes and carbon nanoparticles, and depending on how saturated you are, is going to determine the conductivity and reflectivity and the transmittability of those frequencies. You know, and we've been saying that for a long time. This is basically the evidence in the research validating what we've been saying. The conductivity of the multi-walled carbon nanotube sponge was measured in the terahertz range. Terahertz range, okay? So we're talking again, two different frequencies, microwave and infrared, okay? It says here, generating ultra-short electrical pulses on a chip using metal antennas only a few nanometers in size. Pulses of femtoseconds, 1/4 of a second, from the pump laser on chip electric pulses in the terahertz frequency range. They succeeded for the first time generating ultra-short electric pulses on a chip using metal antennas only a few nanometers in size, and running the signals a few millimeters above the surface and reading them in a controlled manner. Classical electronics allows frequencies up to around 100 gigahertz. 100 gigahertz. That's 100 billion hertz. Optoelectronics uses the electromagnetic phenomenon starting at 10 terahertz, which is even higher. We're talking trillionth of a hertz. Okay. They succeed in generating electrical pulses in a frequency range up to a terahertz using tiny so-called plasmonic antennas and run them over a chip. Let me continue here. Let's try and find something. The light pulses lasted only a femtosecond, 1/4 of a second, because the nano antenna can be integrated into terahertz circuits at a mere several millimeters across. Femtosecond laser pulses with a frequency of 200 terahertz, 200 trillion hertz, could generate an ultra-short terahertz signal with a frequency up to 10 terahertz in the circuits on the chip. Again, we're talking about emissions and transmissions on a photonic level that will bypass the skin's barrier, go inside the body, and cause major damage. Okay, this is what they're showing. This is what they're expressing. You know, this is how you have to do your investigations. Okay. Somebody sent me this, and I thought this was interesting. So again, for those of you who are having computers on all the time, you might want to disconnect your mic and your speakers. New type of audio malware transmits through speakers and microphones. A few weeks ago, security researcher Dragos Rue publicly claimed that computers in his lab were being infected by some sort of stealth, over-the-air transmission method that relied on ordinary speakers and microphones to transmit the malware payload from system to system. There is proof of at least one key aspect of bad BIOS supposed design isn't science fiction. Researchers have published a paper on how malware can be designed to cross the air gap of transmitting information through speakers and recording it via phone. An air gap is a measure that boosts the security of a system by essentially isolating it from other less secure networks rather than relying on TCP or IP. The research team used a network stack originally developed for underwater communication, which now they're saying that they can send transmissions from a submarine underwater to an airplane up in the sky, and they can now communicate. We're in a whole different world. Whole different world. But if you look it up, you can type in new type of audio malware transmits through speaker and microphone. Imagine that. Imagine that. You know, your computer now they can have access to you through your speakers and your phone. I'm going to talk about something here. You know how everybody in the health food industry is always talking about grains, how great grains are for you. So we decided to look up something we read. Somebody sent me some information to look at on milk and how milk could cause a certain problem. And I said the only way that could possibly be is if they're feeding the milk, feeding the cow some kind of high androgenic material that would be higher in the milk supply. Well, then they were talking about different carbohydrates like oats and barley and so forth and so on, right? And how they can increase DHT in the male population. But what they don't tell you is that all the properties that could cause a positive male androgen in the body has all been corrupted. Now let me read this to you. The potential anti-androgenic effect of agricultural pesticides used in the Western Cape in vitro investigation of mixture effects. Again, the plant has the capacity to convert and give something to you that, again, is what you would be looking for. But it doesn't get to you because you are now having problems with the components themselves that are being sprayed on the plant. When we talk about nano, we're talking, you know, we're talking penetration, we're talking different particles getting into the very core of the DNA. People are always asking how they can wash their vegetables. I said that's impossible today. This stuff has penetrated right into the DNA of the plant. So unless you juice the plant and pull out whatever you're looking for out of that plant, and then putting a teaspoon of oil, blending it to separate the nano technology from the juice, you're going to be getting it in. Doesn't matter where you go, what you do, what you eat, you're going to be getting it in. You know, unless you're combining things in your diet to cause the system to enable it to neutralize what's going on. You're going to get it in. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way it is. You know, we don't have any say in it. We never did have any say in it. And you're not going to have any say in it. It's up to you to make the changes. It's up to you to either continue to agree and continue using their services, or, again, buck the system, say no to what they're doing, and go at it on your own. That's basically where it's all heading. That's basically where it's all heading. You know, I don't have any, in any way, shape, or form, do I have any sympathy with this happening. I think once it starts to really happen and people are more set to leave the mainstream shopping, set to leave the mainstream whatever, that's when you're going to probably see these grocery store chains start to drop off like crazy. And with good reason, because nobody will be supporting them, or there'll be so little still, you know, the diehard range that will be supporting them, that that's the only reason why they would stay open. Okay? So when we're looking at how we have to deal with these things, you have to do it with your eyes open, you know. And again, when they're telling you that the bread is good for you and the grains are good for you, well, they're spraying nano silver, they're spraying nano silica, they're spraying glyphosates on there, 2,4-D, they're spraying atrazine, they're spraying other estrogenically high-end pesticides on the foods and properties you're eating. Any hormone balancing effect from the food supply, you know, men needing testosterone, getting it from the plant sources, they're not going to be able to get it from the plant sources because the plant sources are now saturated with estrogen binding components that can cause problems. And this is what they're doing. So on one hand, you know, when you see a report and you see a study saying how the benefits of a grain, then you got to consider that you are not living in 1980 anymore, 1970, 1960, 1950, 1940. You're living in 2018, where everything's had a chance to be saturated very highly and very strongly with these components that are now causing the male genitalia, the male androgens, the male testosterone to become completely compromised. You know, and you have to understand this, that if you're taking something that's going to neutralize something from a plant source that you're consuming, then it isn't going to work unless you extract it, filter it, and then do something with it afterwards to make it more bioavailable. But that's where we're at today, and that's how it is. And this is why I'm showing you this thing, so that when you see the studies, then start looking at, well, they're talking about this, but we got all the spraying going on, and then they're saying it's organic. How could it possibly be organic? How could it possibly be anything be organic today? You know, unless you've got it in an isolated barn or a greenhouse of some kind, or an aquaponic of some kind, you're going to get some kind of pollution from the sky, or even from the transference of the pollen from one farm to another. Especially if you're a farmer who's not growing, or not supposedly growing, GMO foods, and you got a farmer beside you who is growing, well, you're pretty well hooped. You're pretty well hooped. And it's important that you understand that you're pretty well hooped. You know, this is not something that they're going to tell you or display to you correctly. You know, you're seeing a green sign on the box saying it's organic and it's been approved by the USDA. So what does that actually mean? It means nothing. It means that the person went and paid the fees and the fines required to put up in his available space the means and ends to grow things and say that they're now organic. You know, and you might get a better price from overseas because they haven't figured out yet that if you're spraying chemtrails from the sky and you're spraying chemicals on the ground, that the food supply you're eating has been violated and contaminated, and there's no real reality here in regarding to getting anything of any value nutritionally wise. Again, it's important that you understand that. It's important that you understand that this is what they're doing. You know, it's a sleight of hand. So again, when you look at the research and you start looking at some of the things that you are, again, buying into, you need to wake up and recognize that you are here in the year 2014. And the other thing, too, is this. Everything you're eating today, I don't care what it is. I don't care how clean it is. Somebody contacted me on an email, and they've contacted me several times, and it was just about driving me nuts with this. You know, always they're worried about the minutia. You know, and I told them, I said, doesn't matter what you buy, it's going to be contaminated. You have to filter it. Question: why do they put all that crap in the food? Don't they eat the food too? What makes you? Why do you assume they are you? Why are you even the assumption range that these are even people? Why do you assume that? Why do you care what they eat? You are being poisoned. When I hear this kind of question, in my mind, I'm thinking they've got you distracted with bullshit. What do you care what they eat? Why do you think they're like you? Why are you assuming so much? Why? Obviously, there's an assault on mankind. If there is an assault on mankind, do you think they're going to be eating the same poison you are eating? Do you think they're going to be doing the same things you are doing? Do you not think they have better access to better options than you do? You know, why are you assuming that any of the political leaders up there right now are the same type of people you are. These people were appointed. They weren't elected. Okay, you pulled the lever and you did your thing by agreeing to the process of what was going on, but you didn't get no vote. You had absolutely no vote. What you had was an exercise in pulling a lever. Don't be concerned about them. You're the one being poisoned. You're the one being killed. You're the one being genetically engineered. You're the one being nano-engineered. You're the one having these technologies, this nanobiology put inside your body, causing you to have a great deal of problems in your health. You're the one having to deal with this. What they do, disregard. Keep aware of what they're doing to make sure they're not coming back to bite you in the backside. But why do you care about them? They don't give a rat's backside about you. They could care less. They don't give a rat's, like I said, backside. You know, you better pay attention to you and the people around you. You know, and come up with your own ways to neutralize some of the technology coming down the pipe. Don't assume or even show any sign of, you know, concern for these things. These things, you hear me calling them things. They're not people. They're not part of mankind. These are things. What planet would assault itself for no reason? You know, think about that. What planet assaults itself for no reason? Makes no sense. All right, before I go on, I'm always talking about the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network. Give them your support. Give them what you can. Help them any way you can. Show them that you want to keep them going. You got byebyebluesky.com, brian396.com, gagcanada.com, augmentinforce.com. Sites you can go to, sites I would encourage you to go to. So before you send me an email, investigate what you're reading, investigate this technology, investigate it correctly. You'll have more than enough information that you can take off the internet from our sites to be able to show people the truth in any way they are form. You're not going to win everybody over. That's not your job. But to convince them, your job is to tell the truth. So there's 4 sites where you can get information on the truth of the matter that's going on today. augmentinforce.com, augmentinforce.com. Again, that's a site where you can go and check out the catalog link. And from the catalog link, you can see things that are there that may, again, help you and assist you with getting through another day in paradise. So check it out, see what's there, and if you're interested, give me a call. I also do consultations. Independs@yahoo.com. Send me an email, and we'll go from there. Alrighty. When we're talking today about, that David Keith, another one. David Keith. Another headache. Here's an idiot who doesn't know what's up there. They're going by a computer model based on the information that they've got, which isn't enough to determine whether their experiment could cause a problem or not. They're now racing to get this experiment off the ground into the air. Can you believe this? So it's almost like they are working in overdrive to set up a web around the planet so you cannot escape. You're going to be in here forever. That's their idea. That's the concept of their idea. So again, pay attention, but pay attention to you mostly. If you're suffering and dealing with health issues, again, look at what you're doing. Make sure what you're doing is applicable to what you need to do so you can get over whatever. Always remember, fortification, the more you're fortified, the stronger your immune system is and the more it can handle. So if you're fortified with vitamin C, zinc, vitamin A, selenium, manganese, phosphorus, these are things you want in your diet some way, some form, some fashion. So that when you take these things, they can go into the system and they can help, again, pull out of the system whatever may be there. Again, they have that effect as well. Keep in mind, you know, what's going on today. They do not care about you. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. So don't worry about what they're eating. Don't worry about what they're wearing. Don't worry about what they're saying. In fact, you may want to even disregard half the things that you do hear on the television from these political pundits. And you might want to look at how the best way to clean the country from all these influences that cause the problems that we have today. We're looking today at some of the more government interaction with corporations, creating a corporocracy. They're dictating new policies, new principles, and further taking away your rights, even in choices on vitamins, even your choices on foods. Homeopathy now is under attack for whatever reason. Again, I guess it's its turn to be attacked. So, again, anything that has any benefit for you, you may want to start stockpiling today so that you'll have it tomorrow. And that you'll be able to do what's required in order to maybe possibly get yourself out of the situation that you're in, with whatever debt load you might have, or whatever means of survival skills you may or may not have as well. Keep in mind, we are at war. We are at war. You know, when you look at that terahertz documentation, we found that the terahertz and bulk heated cells express a similar number of degrees, 628 and 556 genes respectively, differentially expressed genes. I should just read from my hard copy here. Give me a second, I'll find it. Okay, it says, thus, if the radiation causes membrane-specific effects, then such preferential targeting should activate intracellular signaling and repair pathways that are associated with membrane regulation. But that's what's happening. It's not able to do that because the damage is so extent from being targeted with these frequencies that we have a problem. We found that the terahertz and bulk heated cells express a similar number of degrees, 628 and 556 genes respectively, differentially expressed genes. That's what they're called, DEG. You can look them up. I'm just reading the comments here. The exposure group, then for the bulk heated group, 75% versus 55%. Interesting, many of the identified genes encoded for proteins involved in plasma membrane function, including the ion channels, transmembrane, transporters, and G protein receptors. Membrane of virtually every mammalian cell. Ion channels open and close. Response to subtle changes, transmembrane voltage, and as a result, the control of a wide variety of cultural cellular functions such as facilitating the maintenance of the membrane potential. Like I said, it's basically a breakdown, major breakdown, you know. So when you read that article, it's going to give you an idea of what's going on, why you're feeling sometimes the way you're feeling, and how some of the sound that you're listening to is designed to affect your weather, to affect your overcast, to affect the frequencies of the brain, to screw that up, or to affect, again, if you believe in this principle of the zodiac, it'll affect your sign from that perspective. Again, I'm not one of those that believes in zodiac stuff, but I do see a direct correlation between what they're saying in regarding to the number and the potential of the frequencies that we're being hit with. This is the biggest issue going in regard to anything to do with electronics, how they are manipulating these frequencies to cause the problems they're causing, how their amplitude and the modulation of these frequencies are causing such internal damage to the system, and some of the effects of that damage could be anything from autoimmune disorders, cancers, digestive disorders, skeletal damage, skeletal stress, high levels of cortisol, brain malfunctionality, you can't remember anything, and then when you get the cell phone beaming you as well, it causes further exacerbation of the system. So keep in mind that you are constantly being monitored for an assault. You know, The technology is there. It's completely there. So don't be surprised that you come across the same research. And when you look at this research on the terahertz and activates filamentation of actin, how it damages your system by, again, going in and literally cooking it from the inside out, and then the exposure from the chemtrails in regard to things coming from grocery store. All right. I think we're done. Anyway, we'll see you Thursday. Till then, read the stuff, get caught up, and we'll take care of you. All right, take care.